afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the new Mercury Nonfiction Reading Series at the CityLit Festival. We've got 4 amazing readers here today. Thank you all for coming out to support. Hello?
To support the new reading.
To support the city we all love. Where are the library people? Because we definitely want this to be back on.
They can hear you.
Can you?
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
You guys okay with talking a little loud while I go in search of the library? All right, cool. All right, so our first reader today is Pam Gerhardt. Pam has written professionally for 30 years for a variety of newspapers and magazines, including 40 pieces for the Washington Post. Her memoir, Lucky That Way, won the 2014 American Society of Journalists and Authors Outstanding Prize. She holds an M.F.A. from VCU and a journalism degree from the University of Missouri. She's taught advanced writing and editing classes at Virginia Commonwealth University, Johns Hopkins, and Texas A&M, and currently teaches narrative nonfiction at the University of Maryland. Before Nancy comes up, I also just want to say that all of our authors' books and Matt Porterfield's films are available downstairs in the Ivy Bookshop stand. So please pop by there so they can sign books and films for you after the reading. Pam?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so my book is called Lucky That Way, and can everyone hear me? I teach, so I'm pretty good at this. It's called Lucky That Way. It's a memoir about my dad's stroke. And the first section I'm going to read, he lives in South Carolina, and was on vacation in Arizona and had a stroke, and so he ended up in the ICU in a hospital in Las Vegas. The first little bit, it has a little title, it's called I'll Take 4. I show up with the pancakes. Lou has visitors, family from Washington State, people in flannel shirts, people who likely keep deer rifles in racks by their kitchen doors. I find out from his sister in the hallway that Lou, a Vegas transplant, was hit by a bus in front of a casino. He may never come off the respirator, she tells me. There's no one here to take care of him. She adds, your dad is so funny. Earlier, Lou's brother asked Lou, you want a beer? You know, as a joke. And your dad said from behind his curtain, I'll take 4. At the bedside, they tell Lou sad things. You better get better. We got to go back home. They talk loudly as if he can't hear. They tell him how they cleared out his apartment, packed his stuff into a truck, and they're taking it home to Washington. He's here in the hospital and rehab for the long haul, and they are not staying. They say their awkward goodbyes and stand in the hallway, their hands in their pockets of their Wrangler jeans. I imagine they can't wait to get out of Vegas, and probably wondered for years how Lou could stand it here. Lou's brother lingers by the bedside. He has a long gray ponytail. Lou is trying to gesture to him, pointing to his mouth. The brother panics, searching frantically for something that might make sense. I watch out the corner of my eye, then tell him, I think he needs you to swab his lips. I hand a swab to him that is on the nightstand. Then I think, maybe I am completely wrong. Maybe Lou is making a joke, telling him what he really wants is a cigarette. Okay then, the brother says, and he walks out. After some minutes, Dad whispers to me, poor bastard. We sit there in silence, Dad and I and Lou. Time passes. A nurse comes in, blonde and blue-eyed, but shorter than the one who is apparently going dancing with Dad when he gets home to South Carolina. She takes his temperature and fiddles with the usual stuff, then says, your dad is so special. I told him last night how my car broke down and my house was robbed last week, and this morning he asked, any news on your car? I can't believe he remembered, she tells me, looks lovingly at Dad, then starts to tear up. He really cares about people. She gets a tissue and blows her nose. If this keeps up, the entire staff of the ICU will be partying at his house in South Carolina within the year. After the nurse leaves, I ask Dad if he wants to try the pancakes. I just have to interrupt here. Wait, my dad wasn't eating. He had not eaten for 6 weeks. So my brother calls from Florida and he says, I know, get McDonald's pancakes. He really likes those. Okay? Yeah, we're that family. So after the nurse leaves, I ask Dad if he wants to try the pancakes. He lights up. Hell yeah. I cut him a tiny piece the size of a kidney bean. He swallows it. I try another. I put the straw in the little plastic milk jug designed by Ronald McDonald's face. Another small bite. Then it happens. Dad, hello. Dad coughs. His whole life he has coughed when he eats. But this time he coughs hard and it doesn't stop, and his face turns deep red, then purple, and I think, oh my God, he's choking. I literally drop the yellow styrofoam McDonald's breakfast plate on the floor and run to the nurse's desk and yell, I think my dad is choking. Her eyes show alarm and she dashes into the room. She grabs a tube, a vacuum, and suctions out his mouth and throat. After a few long minutes, we seem to be in the clear. I am aware of my thumping heart. I am frozen. Who brought this in? The nurse asks and points to the pancakes in the yellow plate scattered on the floor. I raise my hand, guilty. Who else? Lou? He hasn't eaten a thing in 13 days, I offer by way of explanation. The piece I gave him is the same size as a piece of rice with chicken on it, the stuff you guys give him all the time. No, she says, that's highly regulated food created by nutritionists. She tells me to never bring in outside food ever again. Yes, ma'am, no way, not if hell freezes over. I pick up the mess on the floor and dump it into the trash can. When I was hospitalized in high school back in 1979 for a chronic nosebleed, the doctors ordered all kinds of lower and upper GI tests to see if for some reason I had internal bleeding. The night before the test, Mom showed up with a Whopper. I had been on laxatives all day to clean up my system for the x-rays, and here was Mom with a Whopper. I devoured it, assuming she had okayed it with the nurses. Years later, I wondered if the technicians could see the Whopper. Okay, they might have whispered, who the hell snuck in Burger King? All right, the next part I'm going to read. So we flew him from Las Vegas to South Carolina, and at first, after a stroke, you go into first the ICU, then acute rehab, which is 3 weeks, and then that's all Medicare, that's all they pay for, and then you move into long-term rehab. In his case, he's paralyzed on his left side, completely paralyzed on his left side, but he can talk. So in this scene, he's in long-term physical rehab in South Carolina. And the name of this is Better Drive with Two Hands. Days slip by, weeks, nothing changes, everything changes. Drive 8 hours from Washington, D.C. to South Carolina, drive back home, attend kids' school play, fix lunches, teach class, answer emails from students and siblings, back down I-95, sit for hours in an institution where people struggle to tell their brains, to tell their legs, to bend, walk, carry on. We buy takeout. We lose our appetites. We all lose weight. Barb and I make notes on a Pokemon notebook she finds in her glove compartment. Number 1, heart monitor results, ? Number 2, back pain. Number 3, goal, : get home, walk with walker. Number 4, good stretch before physical therapy. Number 5, average length of stay. Number 6, meal times okay. Number 7, why insulin injection rather than glipizide? I pause at some point and wonder whether I will remember years from now the word glipizide and how everything for a day or two hung on it like a heavy door on a rusty hinge. There goes another one, Dad whispers, nodding toward the doorway. Look. We're in his room in assisted living. I am visiting again and staring stubbornly at the blank TV on the wall. I refuse to look. I am not playing his game. Look, he whispers, hurry. I look. A woman hunched over in a wheelchair in the hallway moves past the door frame, glances in, then moves on, silently out of the frame. Night of the living dead, Dad says. Let's get out of here, I tell him. I push his wheelchair down the hall, unsure if we can accomplish this, or if someone will stop me, or if an alarm will go off. He hasn't left the building since an ambulance brought him here a few weeks earlier from the acute rehab place. I park him out front, get my car, and pull up near the front door. I get out and come around the car and open the passenger side. I position a wheelchair as close as I can get it. One of the first things he said to me in the ICU at the hospital in Las Vegas a few months earlier was, "Remember how I taught you to drive a stick shift? How could I forget? The task requires a subtle, intricate pattern of hand, foot, brain connections. When we drive, especially a stick, we use just about everything we have: sight, hearing, touch. No matter how many times someone explains it, you just have to eventually feel it. One foot gives gas while the other eases off the clutch until you hit the magic spot." Our parents, who coached us to hold a cup to our lips without spilling, to sense it, often now need similar instructions. "Maybe we better get help," Dad says outside the car. I tell him to put his right hand, his good hand, on top of the open door. "Pull yourself up," I tell him, and grab the waist of his pants from behind. He stands. "Okay," I say, "pivot. Right foot, left foot." We chant together, right foot, left foot. He moves until his backside faces the seat. "Now bend your knees," I tell him. He bends them. "Watch your head," I tell him, and place my palm on top so he doesn't hit his head on the car frame. I realize I've never touched the top of my father's oddly tender head. I swing in his legs. He looks up at me, clearly surprised. "Not bad at all," he says. We shake hands like two business partners closing a deal. I ease the car away from the building. It feels illegal. I have kidnapped an invalid. He gazes at the blue sky. "Let's just hightail it for Mexico," he says. I want to tell my sister we have managed a new skill and that we're headed to her house. I rummage in my purse for my cell phone, holding the wheel with my left hand. I see Dad eyeballing me. Dad, the man who taught me to check the oil, change the air filter, turn your body around when backing up. I see him eyeballing me, and then I know he is going to say it. He is going to say the thing. The old school thing, the thing that used to drive me nuts, the thing that makes me feel better than anything else that day. Dad says, "Better drive with two hands, babe." As we make our way onto the endless highway, I think about how far he's come since the Vegas ICU. I think about motor skills and the blustery afternoon when he taught me to drive back in 1979, the gut-wrenching grinding of gears. As the sun began to set that day, he got out of the car and said, "You're ready to go it alone." I remember finally getting to the top of the hill in my Volkswagen Beetle, turning the car around triumphantly and seeing Dad at the bottom of the hill in his flannel jacket. Winter was coming, clapping his hands.